After the year 2000, I went to the mosque with my father to pray. I went to Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is in the old city, few kilometers away from here. And just exactly when we finished prayers, or a little bit even before we finished prayers, we started hearing people shouting. We started hearing shootings, and it was a chaos. So my father grabbed me, he grabbed my hand, and we ran really fast outside the gates, outside the gates of the old city. We were safe. It was terrifying. It was the first time for me to see such violence happening. Although I was born during the first Intifada. So my whole life until now, I'm unfortunately living this struggle. But I was old enough to recognize and see things, and I started questioning. So my father took me, and we ran really quick. We were safe. The next day, which is a Saturday, which is a regular school day for Palestinian Muslim kids. So I went to school, and I discovered that my classmate was killed. And he was killed during that day in the mosque. He was there, and he was killed by an Israeli soldier. So that moment was, of course, no one knew what to do. The principal of the school decided to take all the kids to the funeral. So they brought a bus, and we went to the funeral, frustrated, angry, didn't really know what was happening, teens. We came back from the funeral, and there is a checkpoint very close to our school. So the kids went to the checkpoint, and we started throwing stones at soldiers. And we did this for an hour or two. Back in the year 2000, we didn't have mobile phones, so my parents didn't know where I was. After an hour or two, I reached home, and my concerned parents asked me where I was. I explained to them what happened, and of course, really concerned and worried that their kid will be in trouble and will actually be shot or go to jail. My father, who is a strong believer in nonviolence resistance, he told me, yes, you have the right to express yourself, and but maybe this is not the best way to do it. And he advised me to reach out to a Palestinian organization that works actually to empower youth, which I did, and I started writing in their first newspaper for youth, and then I started together with a number of youth the first TV program for youth on the Palestinian satellite channel. And that was a big hit. At the beginning, we got a lot of complaints and frustrated people calling our live program, complaining how come we're not talking about politics, and accusing us of trying to take our people to somewhere else rather than concentrating on politics and what's happening on the ground. Gradually, we got more and more viewers, to the extent that one year we were the #1 watched TV program on the satellite channel, which is honestly it's not very widely viewed, but in general it's viewed in certain Palestinian West Bank areas. So until that moment, I really kept the frustration and the hatred towards the other, and I really didn't want to meet Israelis. Although I didn't go to fight them, yet I still held all this frustration inside myself. And it was a decision made in 2000 that I would never meet or speak to an Israeli, until I got an invitation to participate in a conference at NYU, New York University, where I discovered that I had to share a room with an Israeli. And my first reaction was, I'm not going to share a room with this person. I flew more than 12 hours not to see it again. And here they are. He's going to sleep in that next to me. And so I asked the organizer to change the arrangement, which he said it's impossible because New York is really expensive and they don't have more rooms. So I had to spend the week or 10 days there. I barely had a conversation with him. After the conference, I became good friends with the organizer. And he told me, Muhammad, I want to tell you a secret. It's not only you that didn't want to sleep in the same room, it's also the Israeli. But not only this, he was afraid you will kill him. And to me, that was a moment of realization. That was a moment of realization when I started realizing that it's the pain and fear that we have in common as Israelis and Palestinians. I came back to Jerusalem, I finished my studies, and I started looking for ways to engage. Unfortunately, in Jerusalem, you might see Israelis and Palestinians walking the same streets, but they never actually talk, and they never interact, and they look at each other as a threat. And so for me as a Palestinian, my only interactions with Israelis were with soldiers, or when I had to deal with government offices and so on. But otherwise, I never meet Israelis on the same level. So I started looking for ways to engage, and I heard about Kids for Peace from a friend of mine who doesn't really believe in this work. So he was like, maybe you're interested. I don't believe in this work, but I heard about it from a friend of mine who works in education. I went and I asked them to volunteer as a Muslim advisor, and I got accepted. It was really interesting at the beginning, and I started breaking many of the stereotypes that I hold about the other. And it was the first time for me to actually talk to the other side, and not to talk, like not to perceive them immediately as the enemy, but to speak to them about different issues. One of them is politics, but many other issues that we encounter in our daily lives. And I started breaking all the perceptions and the stereotypes that I have about the other. For example, I remember I always saw people that wear a kippah as settlers, and I always saw them as you don't have to do this.
No, it's not.
I know.
And I always saw them as a threat.
Yeah.
Until one day, my Jewish friend Meredith and her husband visited me at home a few years ago, and he was wearing one, and I had to ask about it, and then I was told what the kippah stands for. And of course, until this moment, I learned more and more about Judaism and about Christianity as well. Our kids are the same, and basically this is a core thing at Kids for Peace, that we get our youth when they are 12 years old in a 6-year program where they join us and they start learning about the other and teaching others about their faith and religion until they grow up and graduate from high school, and then we want them to make change in their communities. So our mission is to inspire hope and empower a movement for change. We've been really good in inspiring hope, and we are moving now towards more and more empowering for our youth. And I'm so proud that Michal is one of the kids that started at Kids for Peace when she was 12 or so, and now she's actually one of the employees of the organization. And this is the empowerment, and this is the cycle that we want to see in the organization.
I'm trying to decide where to start my story. To go chronologically. So I think I'll start a bit before that, before 2000, and go back to 1995. I remember the month before I was in 8th and 9th grade, and I remember keeping on asking and trying to understand what's the difference in politics between right wing and left wing, and asking and asking and asking, and not really understanding what's this whole thing is about. And in November 1995, Yitzhak Rabin was murdered, and I think, not that I can call it a good thing, but the only thing, the good thing that happened out of it for me is that I understood what's the difference and where I stand in politics. And right after that I started going to activities of Peace Now, and was involved in that, and there was elections a couple of months after that. I'm standing in different streets in Kfar Saba where I grew up, distributing stickers of voting for Havoda, Meretz, whatever, everything that was left here, feeling that that's what I need to do and can do for doing something in this country in the beginning. And then, jumping few years forward, when I went to a year of service before going to the army. After I finished my high school, I was part of a group of people going together. We delayed the army for a year together and lived together in Carmiel, a day that happened exactly 18 years ago today, as I learned from a Facebook friend, is that exactly 16 years today, Israel left the southern part of Lebanon, and I remember that as a very happy day, and believing this is something that's going to happen. It was a very big deal at the time, and someone I knew from school was hurt in that area a week before that. So I said, okay, so he was injured, but maybe something is starting to change. But around that same time, we learned that a new unit is going to be open in the Israeli army, of men and women being together combat fighters. And me and my very good friends till this day, one of them is Rebecca, the former director with Muhammad of Kids for Peace, were up till I don't know when in the night, excited from the thought that we are going to be the first women in a combat unit, guarding the borders of Israel and doing the best we can in order to do what we can. And I think only during basic training and definitely after the army, I understood this thing that we live in, of believing in peace and trying to find all kinds of different things, of being active in changing the Israeli politics and being active for peace. And when this moment of going into the army, you go and become a combat fighter, learning how to be a fighter. Thank God I didn't have to fight anyone. It was very, the shirt that we made for ourselves at the end of our time in guarding the border was, if we can sleep quietly, so can you. And we mostly slept. Nothing really interesting have happened there, thank God. But in our minds, this idea of being a fighter was definitely a big part of what we wanted to do and who we are. And I definitely after the army, after being in Peace Now, in high school, in the beginning of high school, and after the army, I started looking for different places and different organizations to actually meet people, and not just talk about or think about the fact that we want to have peace, but to actually get to know more and more people. And I went to a conference in Turkey, and that was all these, I don't know, in Hebrew you say a simonim,
The penny drop.
the penny dropped, exactly. All these like things that you know or you understand, but when you see it happen, when you see it in a room, in some ways very similar to this, but when someone says something about Zionism, and then we have to stop and ask, what do you mean when we say Zionism? And what does Zionism mean to me? And what does Zionism mean to you? And unless we have this phrase understood in a way that we can speak about, or understand that my understanding and your understanding is very, very different, we can't continue the conversation. And all these things that are crucial for having a real conversation or understanding of where we come from, or what does it mean to us, or how does it take us forward to something else, in order to not just talk in slogans and thinking that we all understand the same language, but to be aware of the fact that this language has very, very different meanings for different people. I lived in Kibbutz Ktorah, which is far south in Israel, and in the school, in the regional school there, they had a program with a Muslim Arab village up north in Nazareth and Mahel, and I've been part of it for 4 years. All the 4 years I worked in the school, I was part of that project also. And when I moved to Jerusalem 4 years ago, I said, okay, I've been doing all kinds of other things, now it's time to go into Kids for Peace. And all these things that Muhammad already mentioned, the fact that we started 12 years old, and the fact that religion is not something that we fly away from, but it's something that we deal with, and understanding cultures, and actually meeting the others, and not just passing by the street and knowing that we're different people that might have a lot in common and then maybe have a lot not in common, but having the conversation and getting to know each other and learning so much more. And I every time that I do something with Kids for Peace, I know that I'm going to learn something new. Doesn't matter from which perspective, but from the kids and from the adults and from everyone who's participating, I know that there's going to be something that I've never thought about or never knew about, or deeper understanding of something that maybe I already have thought about before. And every meeting like that is a new experience, and I think one of the important things, along with all the knowledge that goes with that, is the fact that unlike everything else in Jerusalem and in Israel in general, of walking in the same streets but not having any connection, is the fact that we feel like a family. And when to meet people in Kids for Peace, or to meet people from Kids for Peace outside, and to feel like these are people that I know that I can work with, and they are my family, and they're in the same set of mind, and we're working towards the same idea and towards the same place, and having the same values of teaching and learning together and getting to know each other and working towards something different than what the government and other people and everything around us is trying to tell us that is the right thing to do. And making at least for ourselves and for the people who are with us, and it's not just 3 of us, or there's more and more people in it, of saying we can do it better. We can live together. That's one part of ourselves, but it's true, because we have this. I know that every time that I go to something of Kids for Peace, and I've heard it from other people also, that we feel like we're home. We're in the right place of being the people who are in the same place with us. That's my story.
So before you talk, can we open the window? It's getting